I feel like to some degree, this is the fault of the US and Europe and really every other country that has, for the last 25 years, gone on this, buying spree of buying all these Chinese-made products. I mean, really, since China entered the WTO, uh, but just like Chinese products are flooding the retail markets of almost every country, right, including the United States. And like you take I don't know, like a T-shirt or something. You could buy a T-shirt from China for, say, I don't know, $10, and you could make that same T-shirt here for maybe $12 or $15, but you'd make it a lot cleaner because the U.S. has environmental standards, and plus it wouldn't need to be shipped halfway around the world. And so there's a lot of, I don't know, I'd say it's not exactly complicity in this sense, but it's like, it's kind of, we've been exporting our environmental problems to China in a kind of similar way that China has been exporting some of its environmental problems to the global south with deforestation, the strip mining.
Yeah, so you're thinking of like processing of minerals like rare earths, which is a really dirty process. We have done that, and mining, we've outsourced that as well. But I think there's an increasing recognition that makes us, the United States, but also some of our friends, even on the Pacific Rim or Europe, really vulnerable to Chinese pressure. I mean, rare earths are increasingly important to any number of industries, starting with semiconductor and lasers, but military equipment of all sorts. So I think there's to get into the trade issue, there's a increasing change in our understanding of what we should be doing. I mean, you could take just a basic principle of global trade as it has been practiced for the last 75 years, which is reciprocity of benefits. I mean, there is no reciprocity with China. And the way they subsidize their industries, we can't compete with that. We couldn't compete in solar because they overproduced and they exported their way to dominance. So I think there's a reckoning coming. Even the Europeans have realized that the basic core of their economies, which is automobiles, machine tools, manufactured goods of one sort or another, chemicals, they're starting to rethink their openness to China, under Trump, the first Trump, and carried on really in the Biden administration. We were always trying to get the Europeans, especially, to join us, and telling the Chinese that unless they stop subsidizing or stopped underselling us, stopped overproducing, that we're going to do what Trump did, and now he's threatening to do more. So I think that there's a global reckoning coming on to the fore.
So how would that reckoning work? Because I guess I'm wondering, how do we break out of the cycle of, essentially, because of China subsidizing all of these manufactured goods that they make, they have low consumption, right, and high supply. Like, they have low demand and high supply, so they're exporting that supply to us. And we have high consumption demand, but we have low domestic manufacturing supply, especially for a lot of these things that we've offshored and can no longer make in the US. So we're kind of in the cycle where we're kind of our high consumption is keeping China's economy going, but, China's output of excess supply is keeping our consumption going. So how do we break out of this?
Well, the only way we can do that is just say we're not going to buy your stuff anymore, and try to get as many of our supposed friends around the world to do the same thing. That would result in higher prices here in the United States. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So we would have to make a political decision, which I think at least Trump in his own mind and some of his advisors have made, is that we have to take that. Now, another pet interest of mine is trying to preserve something of the global trading system, in part because I think we need to keep our friends on the Pacific Rim, Europe, but increasingly the global South. We need to keep them in our camp, if you will. And our nascent industrial policy, which the Biden administration really supercharged, totally undermines our commitment to the principles of the World Trade Organization. So we have to juggle that if we're going to continue to subsidize our way to regaining some industrial strength. That makes it harder for us to, I think, to enlist our friends in the project.
Well, so one thing I've noticed when buying clothing, for example, is I would say 7, 8 years ago, almost everything was made in China. And now there's a lot more variety. You've got Vietnam, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Guatemala,
Yeah.
Malaysia. And so is this part of the U.S.? These are still cheap labor countries, right? Which, if you look at economic theory, it makes sense to get things where they can be produced cheaper. But is this the right way to go, or are there other problems or externalities that are resulting from this shift?
Well, I've got to tell you, I'm not particularly concerned about buying T-shirts from China. I don't think it's there's no national purpose that is endangered if we have trade, including with China on stuff like that. But what China's doing, some of that stuff. I remember going. It's a long time ago. I was in the first Bush administration. Way back then, I visited Panama one time, and they showed me this clothing factory that they had just set up. And even back then, it was run by the Chinese. There's a lot of that going on. They're moving, into lots of places around the world and producing stuff around the world. But to me, the important thing is more stuff that is important to our, really narrowly defined national security, our leadership in technology. So that's a narrower list of stuff. But I think both the Trump administration and the Biden administration, were at least on the right track of identifying what our needs are for maintaining our national strength, our national security, and our leadership in industries like semiconductors or quantum computing. My own view is we ought to support those more by making sure that our research capability, our basic research capability, continues to be the best in the world.
And that hopefully the Chinese government can't steal that.
Right. Well, we have to enforce the intellectual property laws as well, which is another issue.